All right, once you have your design printed, you want to leave this soft and light because the next step that you're going to do is you're going to plan out your color options. So I would not do that on this final copy. I would go back to your rough draft drawing with the sample that you drew here. And I want to teach you just a couple of things about working with colored pencils. So number one, your colored pencils should be sharp to work with. You, as an artist, you should always take care of your art supplies and prepare them to be able to use them successfully with whatever you're creating. So the first thing I would do is sharpen those pencils. Then remember that you have a sharpener in the basket at your table. So the sharpener has two options in it, a larger hole and a smaller hole. It doesn't matter to me which one you work with, they both will work. So remember to take a piece of paper towel out from under your basket. You're going to sharpen over the top. So I have found the easiest way to sharpen the pencil is to just twist it continually in that same direction. So instead of trying to spin the circle round and round and round, I just twist and pull out, twist, and then kind of rotate. And then you'll get a pile of shavings on your desk, so you can just wad up that paper towel and throw those shavings away at the end of class. So I would sharpen the colors that you think you're going to be working with for this assignment to begin with before you ever color. So I would take a look at all the color pencil options you have to work with from your set of 24 and decide what colors are going to help communicate your story. So you want to consider creating emphasis where you have a focal point that stands out. Then you also want to think about using contrasting colors to create that emphasis. So if you look at the grading rubric on this final worksheet, the rubric was printed here. So it says, the student colored the drawing so there was a point of emphasis and repeated colors to show unity. So you also want to consider not using every color from the box, but repeating similar colors to create that sense of unity, which is one of our principles. Then another requirement says the student demonstrated change in hand pressure or layered colors to show value. The student colored the design carefully and the final drawing does not look rushed or sloppy. So I'm going to give you just a couple of pointers to set you up to be most successful. I would practice on this page first. So my final drawing, when it's finished, I should really just see the color pencil for the particular item I'm working with. So if you notice, I don't have this heavy dark pencil outline. So the ribbon was pink, so I just used a pink color pencil. I used a blue on the thread. So to begin with, if you left your copy light, then that should allow you just to see the color that you're working with. So on this one, I've got it colored really dark. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to lighten these edges with my eraser. So to clean an eraser, if you've got a dirty eraser, and your baskets all have a piece of an eraser, to clean the eraser, you're just going to erase on plain white paper. You could turn a worksheet over, you could use your sketchbook blank paper. Once you erase on plain white paper, it cleans it off. So I would always use a clean eraser to start with, and then I'm just going to lightly drag this eraser over the top to lift off the lead to the point where I can still see my design, but I'm not going to have that dark gray outline. Okay, so I'm making it look similar to my print. So those should be similar in lightness. Okay, so some things to keep in mind when you work with color pencils. Like I said, I would sharpen them first because here's what's going to happen if you're working with a dull color pencil. This pencil is really dull. I don't know if the camera will focus enough where I want it to. But there's just a slight bit of color showing on one edge. The opposite edge is the wooden casing around the color pencil. Too many times I see students trying to color with a really dull pencil, and that wooden casing is taller or higher up than the pencil, the color part of the pencil itself. So I will see students who are just coloring until that casing is dragging across the paper. Well, what's going to happen as you start to color is that wooden casing is scratching your paper. And I'm not sure if the video will pick this up, but you will notice little scratch marks on the surface of the paper. That happened because the wooden casing is now just digging into the paper and the colored portion is no longer actually coloring. So that's why you want to keep a sharp pencil so that you're not scratching the surface with the wood casing. Okay, so ways that I like to set myself up to be successful. I like to outline the edge of whatever it is I'm going to be drawing first, and I like to practice on this rough draft so that if I make a mistake, if I change my mind, no big deal. That's not my final version yet. So for me, I want to think about what do I want to be the emphasis of this. I want these numbers, the 7, the 0, and the 2, to be the emphasis, and I want everything behind it to not be the focal point. So I want to think about what colors I want to stand out the most on my numbers. All right, so I think that I want to work with kind of my pinks and reds for my numbers, but I'm not sure if I'm going to like those colors. So what I would do is I would sample just on scrap paper an example of that color, and if you're not sure what that is, look at the end of your pencil. The end of the pencil is going to have the name in French and English and Spanish. So this one is just red. So I might identify that that one is red. This is an example of my red-orange. So I'm just doing RO for red-orange. This darker one is mahogany, so maybe I do an M for mahogany. This one is magenta. You can make up your own codes just so you know what it was. So magenta, and then this one is my pink. Okay, so now I can see visually what these colors are going to look like to help me decide how I want to color things on my final. So I think I want to work with kind of the pinkest, like magenta to start with. So what I like to do is I like to outline the shape of whatever it is I'm coloring. So if I want this 7 to be all pink, I'm going to outline the edge. This is going to create kind of a barrier for my colors to stay within. And I want my letters to be a different color, so I'm going to outline around the edge of my letters. Okay, then you want to try to get a nice even coat with the pencils. So you want to determine how much hand pressure do you want to use to make your colors appear bright or soft. So I would practice that also. So here's heavy hand pressure. I would do a soft hand pressure next to it. So you can visually see the difference of what these are going to look like just by changing your hand pressure so that you can get a variety of values. Because when I read that rubric, the grading rubric said the student changed their hand pressure to create value, or they layered colors to create value. Okay, so I'm going to start out with soft pressure because I can always go darker over the top. But once it's down dark, it's hard to lighten. And if you notice, I'm coloring inside the lines and I'm coloring in the same direction. Okay, so this might be my base coat of what I start with. Then I might play around with what happens when I start to change my hand pressure, or I start to layer colors over the top. If I can get my camera to focus, maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of go harder and darker right up next to my letters. So my letters are gonna get this darker edge around all of them because I want those words to kind of stand out. So I'm just changing my hand pressure around my letters. So now you can visually see where I have a lighter version and I have a darker version of the same color. All right, now that I have my 0 colored in also, now I want to play with value to create the look of layers or shadows. So where my 7 is overlapping my 0, I want my 0 to appear darker back behind. So I might play around with my gray, my black, or even like a darker purple tone to create those shadowing spots. And this is why it's nice to have that rough draft, so you can try a variety of options before you have your final. So I'm going to layer some purple over here, right up along the edge, and I'm going to kind of mix that purple into the pink, and I'm doing really soft hand pressure right now. I'm barely dragging it on the surface, so it's starting to create a mixture of the pink and the purple. So this is creating value. Value is the lightness or the darkness of the color. And on your grading rubric, it says that the student changed their hand pressure to create value, or they layered colors together to create value. So here are ways you could do this. So I'm doing this with purple. I could try this with gray. I could try this with black. I would say use soft hand pressure in the beginning, because if you press too hard, the color might get brighter than you're expecting. And then I'm going to recreate what I did with my lettering here. I'm going to get that pink, and I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to color heavier around the edges of my letters to create that bolder pink color. And that's going to be consistent all the way around. Okay, so now I have the number 2 done, and I want to tie in a little more of this purple, so I'm going to shade a little purple on the edge here, just to give it a little more value. And maybe the top edge has a little purple here. Maybe I do a little on the bottom. And maybe I do a little kind of on the inside of my 7 also. Okay, so now you can see kind of how that number has more visual interest in it. It's not just one solid flat color. It's got a variety of lights and darks and a mixtures of different colors to make it a little more interesting.